Okay, so does that have everybody on, Lori?
I can't see that part of my screen, but I
Oh,
think
okay.
so.
Okay, okay. So
Thanks.
there's primarily engineers and
The
Joyce Hastings.
commission, let's see, someone just bounced to the waiting room. Joyce is here,
Yep.
Artie should be here, and I think it's just those two.
Okay, and then we
some
have Ed.
homeowners are here.
Okay,
So.
okay. Let me just pull up that. Okay, then welcome everyone to the July 24th, 2024 Dover Conservation Commission hearing. And Lori will leave us for a moment because Microsoft is insisting on updating her computer and won't let her postpone. So she may end up stranded in Europe. But if you before you do that, Lori, could you go ahead and read the governor's
Sure.
permission? Thanks.
Following guidance issued by the governor regarding the open meeting law, this public meeting will be held remotely. Individuals wishing to participate may do so using Zoom video conferencing, and to join the meeting by video conferencing with a computer or a tablet, you may use the link. To join by telephone, call the number and enter the ID and the passcode, and the meeting is being recorded.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, have fun with your update. We'll see you shortly.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so first up this evening, we have a certificate of compliance request for 4 Ledgewood Drive. And Janet, did you have a chance to see a letter that was sent out today by Mr. Thompson?
No, I don't think I was copied on that.
Let's take a look. I believe you were, but let me just pop something up here and to take a look here.
Unless that went to my spam. That may have gone to my spam. But
let me review this. It was a clarification for a number of things. And
I can read it if it would help you guys.
well, let me find it first so that I can give Janet an idea of where it might be. But I am let's see. Was it Mike? Did you send that? Mike Thompson?
We sent it to Lori, and Lori sent an email saying that she distributed to the board.
Okay, so let me pull up Lori.
So it should have been in the last hour or so.
oh,
Yeah, I got it 29 minutes ago.
Okay.
That's why I didn't see it then.
Yeah, Janet, if you look on yours, it says forward important note for tonight for Ledgewood Drive.
Okay. Maybe, I don't know. Oh, someone's getting feedback from someone.
What's
Could
that?
everyone mute themselves, please, unless you're speaking?
It's funny, I'm not seeing the yellow come up on there, whoever it was, but
Okay.
it looks like everyone's muted. So
It might be helpful if the commissioners didn't have a chance to review it, maybe we could show that on the screen and review.
okay. Okay, then why don't Artie, do you want to have access to that? Can you pull up the Word document and share that?
Sure. 1 second.
Okay. And we're doing this, everyone. Jen had some notes on her regulatory report, and this addresses some of those. Might as well do them first, and then we can go back to the regulatory report.
Opening up. Just Word is taking a moment.
Okay, as it does. Even though it's been around for almost 40 years, it can't seem to come up any faster.
Okay.
There we
Can you
go.
see?
Yeah, so if you can go ahead, maximize that and, or just, zoom in just a little bit. Maybe it doesn't have that option. There you go. Okay. So, Janet's regulatory report, outlines some issues, and these address some of those issues. And I think they're, worth going over before we go into Janet's report, and then we can address them, as we
Sure.
deal. Okay.
Yep.
So, why don't you go ahead, Artie?
So, Mr. Thompson is on the call, but I'll read it for him. So as the prior owner of 4 Ledgewood Drive in Dover, I thought it would be helpful to provide some insight and perspective regarding the consulting conservation agent's review and recommendation regarding the approval of the Certificate of Compliance DEP 144-0502. The
Okay.
followings are
Before you go, Artie, so Mr. Thompson, you're the former owner, and there's a new current owner, and who's applying for the COC?
Mr. Thompson is filing for the COC.
Oh, he is.
As part of selling the property, Mr. Thompson agreed that he was going to close the certificate of compliance as part of the agreement with the buyers for the property. So
Okay,
that's
and then-
why Mr. Thompson filed for the certificate of compliance.
Got it.
And we are hoping the board can work with us
Okay.
on this.
And did the closing actually proceed without
Yes,
the okay.
yeah,
Okay,
the closing
great.
is
No,
done,
that-
everything's in order.
Okay, so that clarifies it. So, that's helpful information. Okay, then, go ahead with item 1.
So there is a note in here, item number 1, regarding the deviation changes shown on Cheney's letter regarding the reference to a concrete slab and shed. In this section, the concrete slab was in place prior to our purchase of 4 Ledgewood in 1995. And a shed was placed on top of this slab, but no changes in footprint of the concrete slab took place during the 29-year course of our ownership of the property. I can show it on the, Janet has raised her hand. I think she wants to say something.
Well, but prior to that was, so you have a plan, the submission plan, did it show that on the submission plan, the original plan?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
I can go over the details on the plan, but I was thinking, let's go through the items that the homeowner has, and then we can go through the notes that Janet had, and I can give the responses for every item.
Yep, I think that's appropriate. Janet, I see your hand up. Is there anything, do you have an issue with that, going through things in that manner?
Well, I just think it would be more straightforward if we do it item by item instead of waiting.
Well, we have 4 items that Artie wants to bring up. Then we can go through things item by item after that. I just think this gives us an opportunity to see what their responses were, and then we'll be forewarned. It won't take much time. So, basically, go ahead, Artie, in terms of drain pipes.
Okay. So there is another item, drain pipes were added as the addition was built. It appears that only 2 pipes are in deviance as the original plan, based on the fact the consultant only located 2 pipes. This item 4 is the swimming pool was built in 1997, and the unpermitted backwash pit was required and authorized by the Department of Health at the time of construction. My recollection is that Ferrari Pools only added the backwash pit to those plans due to health Department of Health requiring it.
Okay.
Submittal and recording of the deed covenant required in 4 Ledgewood's order of conditions. The attorneys involved in the sale of 4 Ledgewood were notified of the language requirement on Tuesday, 7/24, and have agreed to do a confirmatory deed adding to the records at the Norfolk Registry as requested. It is my hope that with this updates clarifications that the Conservation Commission might be able to moving forward with the issuance of the certificate of compliance at their
Mhm.
July 24 meeting.
Okay, so with that in mind, why don't we turn things over to Janet? But what I'd like to do, Artie, is do you have a plan that you can share on the screen
Yep.
while Janet goes over things? Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, let's pull that up.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Can you see?
Ken, now, Artie, is this the as-built plan that you're submitting as part of your OOC, or is it is this the original submission plan?
This is the plan that we submitted for the certificate of compliance. What's happened, if I can refresh the board's memory, in 2003, the homeowner asked for permission from Conservation Commission to build this addition on the right-hand side of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And subsequently, in 2012, the homeowner wanted to, Mr. Thompson requested to do the deck on the back of the property, this deck on the back in here. So as part of doing that work at the time, there is enlargement of the porch in here. You see where we got the word porch? So the porch used to have stairs in here. So he enlarged this porch in here, and then at the same time added this deck. What we did in 2012 is that we filed for a certificate of compliance in order to close the old order of conditions from 2003 for the proposed addition, and filed an RDA for allowing the homeowner to expand the porch and to build a deck on the back.
Okay.
That was done in 2012.
Okay, so there was a COC for the original
There was an order of conditions that was issued. We applied in 2012 for a COC, and at the same time, we applied for an RDA.
Right.
The RDA was approved, and George allowed the project to move forward. However, the homeowner at the time had two things: the gas tanks and the generator. They were inside the 40-foot structure setback, and the commission at the time said that if you got to move the generator and you got to move the gas tanks in order for us to issue the certificate of compliance.
Okay.
This is in 2012.
Right.
George did oversee the work as far as the building of the porch and the deck, and apparently at that time, the contractor, which was local, he moved the generator and he moved the gas tanks. However, he moved it, and what transpired between him and George, we don't have records of. However, now that the owner wanted to sell the property, Lori found in the paperwork that the commission had required that the generator and the gas tanks had to be outside the 40-foot structure setback, and there is nothing to back up that was done, so a certification was needed. At that time, what we did now is we went on the site, located the edge of lawn, and saw for any changes that had happened, and we located the new gas tanks and the new generator. So in our mind, the right thing to do was to provide the commission with the same letter that they had given in 2012, identifying that if it isn't before we said that the generator was inside the 40-foot structure setback, we said the generator is 41 feet away. And when it comes down to the gas tanks, it's 42 feet away. And we left the other items that we had pointed out in 2012 that the commission felt that was not an issue at that time. I believe there is misunderstanding on reading the plans on the part of Janet, but I'm happy to go through the motions, reading Janet's notes, or if Janet has the hand raised, if she wants to go first and I respond, however you want to do.
Okay, so just to clarify, in 2012, a COC was requested, but a
Yes.
COC was not granted.
That's correct. And the condition was that the gas tank has to be moved outside the 40-foot structure setback, and the generator had to be moved outside the structure setback. And this is
And-
where we proving to the commission, and we certified that that has happened.
Okay, do we know where they actually moved, or is this just a remeasurement,
Oh, no, they were moved. I can
Was-
show you. So you see where the gas tanks were in yellow?
I see. Mm-hmm, yeah,
Now from there, they moved it in here. So it's not lapses on measurements, it's just they are on different location. The generator used to be right on this corner in here. Now it's moved further away. They moved it closer to the house in here. So before it was 35 feet, 36 feet, now it's 41.
okay. Okay, then, wanted to keep this plan up, and, Janet, why don't you, take us through your review, please?
Sure. So, so it's a little more complicated when you're dealing with plans that are like 20 years old.
Yep.
But just to recap the certificate of compliance process and what we require. So there's always a final site plan. And then when the project's finished, to get your certificate of compliance, someone needs to go out, inspect the site. They have to be PE, land surveyor, or landscape architect, survey or review the site, and then identify all changes or deviations. And we generally like an explanation as to, why was there a deviation? There might be a good reason, but to fully inform the commission on all deviations and distance to the wetland, because we do have our setbacks. Back in 2003, we had the 25-foot no disturb, 40 no structure. So I did a very careful review of the original site plan from 2003 from GLM.
I'm sorry, it blanked out a little bit when you're talking. You did a very what review of it?
Thorough, detailed, a detailed review.
We'll let Janet, I couldn't hear Janet, so Janet, you say you did a very detailed review, is that correct?
Yes, looked
Okay.
at the final approved site plan, and then I also looked at what was submitted in 2012 for the request,
Yeah.
and then the most recent request. And then my notes outline the deviations. My concern was a couple concerns. The first was not all the deviations were included in the letter from Cheney, and that some of the deviation it wasn't identified, well, where did it take place? Is it in the 25? Is it in the 40? So it's really a matter of providing sufficient detail, but also a number of deviations were not called out. And it is helpful now that Mr. Thompson provides some more context, but honestly, that would have been helpful in the certificate of compliance letter to understand. So to address a couple things. So the reference to the shed and concrete base, the original final approved plan from 2003, and that's the governing plan that says what the commission approved. It only showed a shed. It did not show any concrete base. And then I'm a little confused because in Cheney's letter, they said the shed was enlarged and the pool equipment was located on a concrete slab, which was new. But Mr. Thompson tonight is saying that wasn't accurate, that the shed and concrete pad were there back in 1995, but that doesn't show on the GLM original approved site plan. And Cheney Engineering calls that out as a change.
Can I?
So
do that?
they call it out as a change as opposed to a change with an explanation or any sort of narrative associated with it. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
So,
And-
yeah, can I talk?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the note that we have, note number 7 says shed enlarged and pool equipment located on the concrete slab. As you can see on this plan in yellow in here, it shows the location of the original shed.
Mhm.
According to Mr. Thompson, the shed was there. It was taken down and they put a new shed, but they did not increase the concrete pad. The plan that was shown in 2003 only indicated where the shed was, did not indicate the concrete slab around it.
Did the 2012 shed show the concrete?
No, the
And-
plan, not 2012, the plan from 2000, so there is no change between the plan that we did in 2012 and the plan that we did in 2024. We stand
and when-
behind the plan that was done in 2012 and 2024.
So
But
when
what's-
was the shed expanded?
At the time when they did the swimming pool, because the
Which
pool
was-
equipments are on back in here, so.
Which was when was the pool done?
So the pool, according to Mr. Thompson, was done around 1997. The order of conditions was filed in 2003, 5 years before they filed for the proposed addition. We did show this to George. We did meet with George at the time on the site. And if you look at the concrete, it looks old. So George didn't feel that that was an issue at that time. Keep in mind that we got 2 wetlands line. One is the original wetland line that Goddard Consulted did at the time. And we have the wetland line that was there from 2003. It was not brought up to the commission in 2003 that next to the shed, there were a concrete pad and there were pool equipments. It
So my
wasn't shown
question-
on the plan.
Lardy, let me get a word in here, please. So what I'm hearing is that the structure, the pool equipment that if you zoom in a click, please. Okay, so the shed that's showing there, it appears that's the original shed, and
The
there's now a
yellow,
shed.
yes, the
Yeah,
yellow
and then-
one is.
Let me finish, please. Okay. Then there's an L-shaped building that is the expanded shed. Is that correct?
This is the
Okay.
expenditure.
So I just asked about when that was expanded, and what you told me was that was there in 1997.
Well, the pool equipment are on top of the concrete slab.
Right.
The pool was built in 1997.
No, I got it.
Common
Yeah, good.
sense tells me that because they put the pool equipment there, then they must have put the new shed around that time. I
Well,
can't
no,
put the
so
finger on what year.
here's my question. The pad could have been there. The shed, the L-shaped shed apparently was not.
That's
And
correct.
it was then built sometime between 2003 and 2012 or 2024. And that shed was increased towards further into the no structure setback.
And that was pointed out to the commission in 2012, and the commission felt that that was minor and they would let it go because As you can see, the 2003 40-foot structure setback was further away from the concrete pad and the shed.
Oh, okay, okay, so
Yes,
that's,
you
so
have the
that,
wetlands now, but we're going by 2020, 2003.
okay, no, I think that's very salient, actually, which has not been, was not very clear. So the things that we're looking at is there's been an encroachment of the wetlands onto the property in the last 20 years. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, after 2003, the shed was enlarged, and in 2012, the commission felt that that was minor.
So
Now
the
it's-
new, the new 40-foot setback, the white lines that you have,
Yep,
when was that wetland determined?
that usually, that was done in 2012.
Okay,
That part of the RDA that was filed.
I see. So what you're saying is that the original shed was well outside of the 40-foot, the
It-
original 2003, and then 2012, the wetlands were
Were
redone.
extended, yeah, you can
And they
see it in
were-
here.
I see. Okay. Okay, let's
So the commission in 2012 let it go, said, no, that's fine, and George didn't see that as being a problem.
okay, so part of that thing
So-
is, and part of this is I want to really get to a thing of how much of this is important versus having to go try to dig up the minutes from 2012 and see whether or not this was actually addressed. I think it's interesting that we have a stricter wetlands line that came up in 2012. And in 2012, this line was redelineated in order to do what? Was it to do the
In
porch?
order, because we were expanding the porch in this direction in here. I don't
Yeah.
know if you can see, so this
Yep.
section in here of the porch was added, and
Yeah.
then this deck was being added. So the porch got expanded, it got lined up with a house,
Mhm.
and the deck was put in there. So
Okay,
as part of that work, we disclosed to the commission that yes, the shed has been expanded. Yes, there is a concrete pad and there are pool equipments on the concrete pad. And at the time, the commission felt that that was minor and they allowed to move forward with
Okay.
an RDA.
so in addressing Janet's concern, which is the fact that a narrative is really helpful that outlines any of these things before she has to review any of this. So it would seem that this narrative should have spelled out that there were two sets of wetland lines, and that in the original wetland line, the concrete pad was beyond that. And that should have all been explained in the original part so that we didn't have to become, to where we are at this point. Janet, why don't we,
So
Relative-
if it's possible, on the next meeting, can we please make a note? So Janet can write on this item number 1 that the commission discussed it and this is not an issue?
no,
Because
I'm
if
not
we
saying,
leave
because,
it as
no,
is-
wait, Artie, don't jump ahead. I haven't
Okay.
even had Janet respond to this, okay? So okay, there's, so that's, we will, as we go through this, then we'll determine what steps are necessary. I am just outlining that we have had before, and we've asked, your office as well as a few others, but we're getting a historical COC. If there are discrepancies, be proactive and give something in the narrative that outlines these situations so that we don't have to find out, over the course of several weeks and then find out that we're trying to rush something. So in this case here, a narrative would have been helpful to set out, and I don't know who's speaking in the background, but anybody who has anyone speaking in their background, we're picking it up on your microphone. So please have people stop that. So in your narrative in the future, when you encounter something of this sort, you need to express it clearly as to why things are within the 40-foot. In this case here, the history of the fact that the wetland lines changed as well would be very helpful. Okay, Janet, why don't we in staying on this, why don't we, what's your take with this new information?
Yeah, we're still getting feedback from some on the
Yeah,
call.
Artie, can you stop sharing your screen? Let me see everyone so that I can see where the noise is coming from. Um, the
It's gotta be someone who has the phone and the computer open.
do you think because we have an echo, or why do you think it's both?
Because of the echo, that's why I'm guessing that someone is having the phone and the computer next to each other.
Does anybody have that situation in their house right at the moment? Okay, then let's that noise seems to have gone away. Okay, let's pull this up again, Artie, and Janet, what's your take on what we've learned here?
So this is all relevant information that should have been included on, as you indicated. The responsibility is on the applicant and their representative to give a full accounting of what was done. If wasn't done in accordance with the original plan, there needs to be identification and an explanation as to why the change was made and how it may impact the wetland. So that's really all we're looking for here. We have, I've heard 4 or 5 different things here tonight. Some of it is contradictory, but I would recommend a revised request. We do have to wait for the confirmatory deed to be completed and recorded before we can issue the CO. But I think, again, we just need an accurate, complete certificate of compliance request that identifies, and we're going to talk about this later tonight, putting a written form and requirements, because this seems to be a issue. All the information already shared with us and the homeowner shared should have been in the original letter, and then this could have been very straightforward. I don't see it on here that needs to be revised, because I was out in the field. I didn't see an impact. But again,
I'm sorry, you blanked out there again, Janet. Just you were out in the field, you didn't see a what?
I did not see any impact from any deviations that would change. However, I will say the elevations in the original final approved plan are way off from what we got in this plan, and that should be addressed.
Okay.
I can address that if you allow me.
Well, actually, before you do that, Artie, so Janet, can you help us out? What, in terms of you looking at the grading elevations, or which ones you're referring to?
There was no grading proposed in the project. And the closest elevation near the isolated wetland, the original by GLM, was 190.
Oh, excuse me again. Who is not muted? I'd like everyone to be muted except for Janet, please, and myself. Okay, go ahead, Janet. Thank you.
So the original site plan done by GLM,
Yeah.
at the original isolated wetland, the closest elevation lists 194.
Where is that one, that isolated wetland shown? Is it to the
bottom in the middle?
what's
where-
that?
It says wetland delineation by GLM. So,
May I explain?
well, can I just finish? So the original line was 194. The plan
Yep.
submitted by Cheney, 2024, shows the closest elevation line at 253.
Yeah.
So that's quite a difference.
Well, but did you see a 50-foot drop there?
Oh,
Okay, so very often they engineers will pick up on how they do their closing out and their wetland lines. No, wetland lines, elevation lines may use a different datum, and especially in this time frame, we've encountered this up to 100-foot difference. Artie, why don't you explain that
So,
better?
It's simple to explain. You can ask Janet, the elevation at the wetlands is elevation shown on the original plan 194. The
Mhm.
elevation near the proposed addition was elevation 200. The difference between the elevation at the addition and the elevation at the wetlands is 6 feet. If you look at our plan, the difference between the elevation at the addition and the elevation at the wetlands is 6 feet. There is no change in elevation. You
Well,
just
no,
have to know how
I'm
to read
saying,
the plan.
Artie, no, I'm reading grade lines there. If you can zoom in a little bit, no, not quite that
So,
far. I'm
so
back.
I'll show you in here. If you look in here, this is elevation 259.
Right,
And if you look in here,
it's
this is
253.
elevation 254.
Okay. And
So
where
if you
where
go
was-
from here, here's 253.
So
This
where
is
is
250
no, I see that. Where is GLM saying it was 200 feet or 190?
up in here. Where we got 259, GLM had
Yeah.
it 250.
Okay, so that's
So-
easy. So the question is, can you explain to us why two different engineers would have such a discrepancy in their elevations?
Because we used the elevation at the top of concrete that was used for the septic, which used that elevation 261.2. That's what we used as controlling point. And
Okay,
this was done because of the new work that we were doing.
right. No, but why would there be such a discrepancy between what GLM showed on their original plan versus which?
Again, so let me explain. The original plan that was proposed for the addition, at the edge of lawn, they had erosion control barrier.
Mm-hmm,
When you see the edge of lawn, so there
Mhm.
was no work being proposed from the edge of lawn to the wetlands. Everything was being done from here toward the house. So
Mhm.
no work was being proposed toward the wetlands. At the time when we did the survey, the town required that you had to be on a particular datum, so we used the datum that we got to be on a town datum. Must have been the sewer datum at the time. So we ran it by George, which used to be an engineer. So George was fine with it and didn't see a problem because we were proving that was 6 foot of difference before and after.
So part of my thing was trying to get for lay people just to that sometimes what you're referring to as a datum level layer can be off dramatically because they're not using GPS. Artie, I don't know who's again, Artie, can you I don't know if it's in my echo. No.
Well, if you mute yourself, we can check it.
Yeah, because let me do that.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Do we hear any noise? Is that noise still coming? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Can you guys hear me?
It's all good.
Yeah, I hear you, and it was good. So but I have nothing else running around me. So maybe I have something that's creating RF and interference. I apologize. So the datum levels, which are that what somebody might think is 200 feet, may actually be 150 in another because these were done prior to GPS being utilized. In Joyce's plan, is there a 6 foot change in grade?
Yeah, GLM plan has a 6 foot difference. On ours is 6 foot difference. George looked at
Okay.
it and was fine.
Okay, no, I get the George part. So
Oh, okay.
basically,
So
the net change for grading has not changed. The datum for what was used changed.
So we use the NAVD 1929 datum, and the benchmark was taken from station 3466.
Yep. So I'm
Near
just
20 Ledgewood.
I'm just trying to explain to people why these things came up with, these issues came up with older stuff. The 1929 datum has been used for for most things. but sometimes we still, in the 2010s or thereabouts, we still ran into these discrepancies. So what counts is the fact that the grade change is not any different. So that is, but I think it's for Janet, what Janet was saying is that if you see something like that, where the previous engineer was using a different datum level, just call it out so that it's addressed.
If I can remind the commission, the reason why we filed in 2024 was to prove that the generator and the gas tanks were outside the 40-foot structure. Just a reminder. Yes.
That's a different thing. We're not talking datum levels there. We're talking revised wetland line there. So we're talking about Janet's concern was that there was a 50-foot drop when clearly there isn't a 50-foot drop. I wanted to outline why that discrepancy appears, and it's something that if you see it on the GLM plan, it's just helpful to put it in the narrative is that a different datum level was used, okay? So what I'm hearing is that the actual grading change, and as you pointed out, your limit of lawn was in essence your erosion control barrier, that there's a 6-foot drop, there's always been a 6-foot drop, nothing changed on the grading. Okay, Janet, is that I don't know how clarifying that was, but does that make sense to you?
Yes, so, you know, the point is that we expect an accurate and complete description in the certification letter as to there are changes or deviations from the final approved to what they show, and just explain that in a narrative, and then this would have taken 3 minutes at a meeting.
Yep. So moving on, what we have is the generator and gas tanks are now shown outside of that. The narrative would have been nice to say they were moved, and here is and include the print plan that would show where the original ones were, and that would have addressed Janet's concern, right, you know, up front there.
It's on the letter. It's stated on the letter, John. In 2012, Cheney Engineering requested certificate of compliance, but Conservation Commission requested for the generator and gas tank to be relocated outside the 40-foot structure setback. And then item number 1 says 2 gas tanks 42 feet away from BVW.
No, excuse me. This is like a conjunction in a sentence, Artie. The Conservation Commission requested that they be moved outside the 40-foot. That was done as shown on the new plan. They were moved approximately X number of feet. That way we know that they were moved. You showed on the plan with the yellow outlines that they were moved, but in the narrative, it doesn't say they actually were moved. It just says that they were requested to be
Yeah,
moved.
I left the same. If you compare the 2 letters, the first one had the 29.9, the 2 gas tanks. The new one has it 42. I was just trying to be consistent.
But
That's all.
the fact of the matter is, we're not supposed to do the math, okay? Just in the narrative, just declarative sentences that and address them, okay? That's what we're trying to do. Janet, next on your list.
Let's see. There is a third drain pipe shown, but I could not locate it, and so that should just be pulled out again to be accurate. Just, you know, I'm not sure why it's shown on your plan, but it's not referenced in your letter. I'm just calling out the inconsistencies that need to be addressed. It's not or bad, but you know, it needs to be an accurate certification letter that references everything in the as-built. That is a deviation.
And is this, and from what I'm hearing, is this pipe actually doesn't exist, or what's the case there?
It looks like it goes into the ground. I could not find an outlet for it, but the outlet is shown on the site plan, you know, within the 40-foot.
Right. And did it actually, so it's, and it's
I think
within,
she's talking about this one.
right, and that is actually, so that is, yeah, it's within the 40-foot. And was there, in Mr. Thompson's letter, did it say something about that there were only 2 drain pipes?
Well, we He didn't know which drain pipes we were talking about. We were referring to this 2 drain pipe. So the work was for this addition on the back, so we referred those 2 drains on the front. We did not point out the drain on the front. So we'll point out that there's another drain on the front that is shown on the plan. So it's
But as
not
far-
2 drain, it's 3 drains.
Okay, and as far as you know, that had nothing to do with any of the work that was done? Or do we know that?
What, no, this, the 2 drain, this drain on the back was done because of the porch. This drain
Right.
on the back was done because of the addition. This drain on the front was done because of the addition, because of 2003 work.
I see. So,
When we looked
that-
at on site with George, it wasn't a problem.
well, I think also generally historically back then, we did allow for drains to go into, into the 40-foot setback because they weren't viewed as structures.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's my explanation of recalling how drains were dealt with at that point in time. Janet, next.
So
Can I cut in super fast?
What's that?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just
Yeah.
like to cut in super fast. This is a good discussion. However, we're about 40 minutes past our time slot, and I know folks have been joining. Can we, since we're going to require some adjustments and to the narratives, can we come back to this and catch up the other things? They look
Actually, you know
short.
what? Actually, no, part of the issue we've been having with meetings that run long
Mhm.
is because things weren't submitted properly in the first place. And I have to run with Janet on this one here, Artie. You and Janet take care of this stuff offline so that we get an appropriate submission, and we can deal with it at the next meeting, okay? This is the type of stuff that eats up time because it wasn't done appropriately in the first place. So what we're gonna do is continue the hearing. And we're gonna move on to people who've been waiting and we're previously scheduled. This should have been with the appropriate narrative. I agree with Janet. This is a less than 5-minute deal that explains everything ahead of time so that we don't have to get, and if you encountered stuff that didn't, that seemed to be discrepancies, then you should have gone back to the client and said, we have these discrepancies, what went on here? We shouldn't have to go ahead and take up time like this, okay? It relatively, at the end of the day, this should be pretty simple. Let's make it so. You and Janet discuss with each other and
Okay.
please, and file for the extension. For the
John,
next,
is it possible that, one moment, whatever Janet wants for changes on the letter, on the plan, or whatever she wants, we'll do it. One thing that I ask from the commission is the reason why we are in front of you is to prove that the generator and the gas tanks have moved. All the other items are clarification between us and Janet.
Okay,
Can the
so-
commission vote to give us the certificate of compliance conditional that we provide Janet the information that she
no,
wants?
I'm not gonna, bend into a pretzel here
Okay.
trying to figure things
Sure.
out. Get
Okay.
this submitted, get this,
I agree.
Okay.
No.
get this,
Okay,
get this submitted, it's already closed.
okay,
I don't know what the deals are, but this, this is a
fine.
20-year-old thing and we're not gonna rush it. We just want it done properly so that the next time with the new homeowners, we'll have everything on record there and there won't be any concerns about this. Okay, so I put in an email to Lori that you want to have this continued to the next hearing, and then communicate with Janet to make sure that you cover everything that she wants and revise your narrative, please. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Anna, for bringing that to our attention. So next thing is an update on 14 Hamlin's Crossing regarding GLM. Janet, why don't you fill us in on this?
Sure. So this was a COC request. There was a new owner.
Excuse me just a moment. Artie, can you take your screen share off, please? Thank you.
At the time of my inspection, I discovered extensive clearing. Quite a few trees were removed within the buffer, but outside the 40-foot. We issued an enforcement order. The new homeowners have been extremely helpful and have been doing everything we've asked them to do. We did look at the original restoration plan prepared by Joyce at GLM. The commission did a site visit and we had requested some changes, basically increasing the vegetation and adding some shrubs versus all trees. So I think the revised plan is good, but it does not meet our buffer zone restoration guidelines. And so I just wanted to have the commission review that restoration plan. I do think overall it's sufficient, but because it doesn't meet, strictly our guidelines, I think the commission should take a look at that and maybe Joyce can walk us through the plantings that are proposed.
So in terms of not meeting our guidelines, could you be a little bit more specific? Is it a matter of not of exchanging shrubs for trees and not having similar DBH plantings?
Yes, so 82 trees over 4 inches were removed. 10 of them were over 24 DBH.
Mhm.
But only 20 trees and 20 shrubs are being proposed. And we
Okay.
generally require the 1 to 1.5.
Mhm. And
placement.
yet in this particular instance, you think that what's being proposed, given what they've done in terms of removing have the tree trunks been removed?
So, yes, so Joyce Hastings from.
Oh, just I just wanted to get a clarification on Janet before we
Yeah.
things over to you. So Janet, given all that, you're calling to our attention that it doesn't meet those guidelines. However, with our approval, you think this is a reasonable restoration. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think so.
Okay.
And as you'll recall, a number of the large tree, the portions that were cut down had been left in the back of the property. I'm informed those have now all been removed. The stumps have remained. There'll be some regrowth on some of those stumps. But I do think overall this is sufficient. They are proposing a conservation seed mix to help prevent invasive growth.
And this was, just to reinforce, this was inherited. This was work done by the previous owner. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Okay. So with that, Joyce, go ahead.
So I'm just gonna share my, so based on our site walk, what I did was I added a number of shrubs to this slope. Previously, we had all trees. So I put some shrubs on this slope. And then this is the fence that was out there that surrounds the area. What I talked about was that this area is all very, very fine mulch, and that it would be seeded with a conservation seed mix raked in and be allowed to grow. They did remove the trees. This area here had all the stumps and logs. And I have a picture here. As you can see, we were standing up here on the hill. And this has all been, sorry, trying to enlarge it. So these were all the trees that were overlaying. So these have all been removed. And even now things are growing back.
And is part of the seed mix that's proposed, is part of it going in there?
Yes, it can go in there too, also.
Okay, I'm just saying again to sort of tamp down invasives.
Right. So we were standing up here, we're looking down. This is where we were standing up and looking down at all those trees. So that's basically that's what we've proposed, and I've added a schedule for planting for the shrubs and trees. And I've given them a list of things to go over, because just in case things aren't available, and ask that they pick a minimum of I think I said three, at least three from each one, so that we
Mhm.
have a little bit of variety.
Okay. Great. Commissioners, are there any questions concerning this?
Just a question on why it's smaller. I assume that's to avoid the million tiny trees all planted next to each other, none of which survive problem.
Oh, sorry, say that one more time?
I'm just wondering why there are fewer trees. Is it the usual problem of if we cut down 84 and replace it with 84,
So-
twigs, none of
Right,
them make it.
so when we counted the trees and we talked about diameter, breast height, keep in mind, these were all the diameter at the cut stump level. So not all of these would have been met all the requirements, but no, we are spreading them out throughout the area so that and there are some trees still there. So we're hoping that these will just become good specimens as opposed to, a lot of little things.
Mhm.
And things are still,
That's good.
as we speak, growing, as we speak, they're growing. Things are
And
growing
you-
back.
And you added more onto the slope, which was one of the site
Right.
visit concerns. Okay.
Janet liked that exposure, that size exposure, and because of the slope, wanted shrubs there to,
Mhm.
for future stabilization.
Okay. Are there any questions by any residents or anyone else on the call tonight? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to so we're looking at this is being viewed as an enforcement order then, is that correct? Is that what we're under?
That's right. And so the next step, so we required in the first enforcement order, this restoration plan be done. And then I wanted to wait and see the discussion tonight and the commission's feedback. And I will
Mhm.
draft an amended enforcement order
Okay,
that govern the implementation. But I think this,
okay,
Joyce, the only thing I would mention, actually two things. Your new restoration plan references 30 trees, but then the bullet says 20 trees.
Oh, I see exactly where that is. I'll revise that.
And then the other thing is we do generally require monitoring. And I outlined the monitoring requirements. If you could add that to your site plan.
Okay,
so in places, we'll have it on the plan itself.
I will do that.
okay. Great, so then there's no vote necessary at this point. You'll just move forward with the revisions there, Janet?
Yes, so I'll have an amended enforcement order for the commission to review and vote on at the next meeting.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, 143 Dedham Street has been continued.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Joyce. But and so next up is 31 Springdale, enforcement order compliance and an RDA. Janet, why don't you fill us in on that, please?
So going back quite a while ago, we got an RDA for some work in the driveway on this property. And then during a site visit, this was back in March, Jim and myself did a site meeting and discovered extensive filling in wetland, filling of a small stream. And we issued an enforcement order requiring a restoration plan, just like we dealt with at 14 Hamlins. And the original deadline on that was back in May. So that deadline has passed. And I think the new deadline is August 3rd. But because we had not gotten feedback from the owner, Will Mitchell, I think a letter had gone out and Lori had sent that to copy everyone. And it's my understanding he was going to attend tonight just to give us an update.
I'm here, Janet. I was just tuned out there for a second, but I'm caught up now.
Great.
Mhm.
The
Okay.
other send is the RDA itself proposed a circular drive very close to the wetland / vernal pool. And I think it was in previous discussions, the commission didn't think that was a good idea. And so we were waiting for a revised RDA so we could close that out. So those are the two areas that it'd be nice to get an update from Will tonight.
Okay, Will, why don't you fill us in?
Yeah, so I've been out of town for quite a while, so I didn't get the letter. But Lori actually emailed me that she had sent a letter, so I got that. At that point, I followed up with Goddard, who said that they actually hadn't even started the restoration plan. So, I told them to, kind of get the ball rolling and please follow up with the commission. And I actually just before the meeting heard back from them, and Mitch from Goddard said that he would send you an update today, Janet. I don't know if you got that or not.
I didn't see anything up until about 5.
Okay. So, to my knowledge, they're working on it, but until I hear from them, kind of what their timeline is and a little more information, that's about all I have to update. As far as the RDA, it was my mistake. I didn't realize I needed to resubmit the plan, so it should be pretty simple, just deleting the portion of the circle drive. And is that submitted during a meeting, or can I just give that to Lori at any time?
You can give it to Lori and then it will come up at a meeting as we review it.
Yeah.
One of the questions that Janice brought up a couple times, you had showed the U-shaped drive, which basically was not approved. And as I
Yeah.
understand but you had put up stone posts.
Yes.
Showing that, and the wall has been built to fill things in between. And then was your intention to put a wood fence of some form between on the right side of that, so to make it clear that
Yeah. We're probably a little ways out from, the point where we're putting up fences. So we'll have to do something temporarily. And I know Janet mentioned it looked like some people had been using it when I was out of town. So
Mhm.
I put some of the machinery attachments there, so it's not going to be passable.
Mhm.
But even if it's just caution tape or something, we can put that up in the
Mhm.
meantime.
And then make sure that that's noted on the RDA.
Yeah.
Okay, on the revision there.
Sure.
Janet, any other questions?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, commissioners, any questions? Okay, then now what are we looking at for uh, when can we expect this revised RDA?
I mean, I can do that this week,
What is,
so I guess it'll be up for 2 weeks
and
from now.
what is it we're waiting for Goddard to give us?
They owe the restoration plan for
Yeah.
the other issues.
Yeah, so okay, so you're looking at the RDA and then the restoration plan separately done by a wetland scientist, which would be Goddard.
Yes.
And your time frame for them is, I know.
I'll maybe have a better idea once Mitch from Goddard is able to fill Janet in. I think he's supposed to copy me on that. So I guess hopefully tomorrow Janet and I should both know a better idea. I mean, at this point, I don't really have any idea how long these things typically take. It sounds like not much was done when I checked in
Okay,
a few
so
weeks
if
ago.
we basically need you to push a little harder on Goddard, and they're all, they all have too much work right at the moment.
Yeah.
But let's push on this so that we're ready for a September planting is what we'd want to be.
Oh yeah.
We don't want this to stretch much farther than that, and at the same time, in August planting may not be that successful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, night. Okay, let's see. I'm seeing Sarah and Kay. Janet, what do we have up in front of us that involves Wilsondale?
We do
Or
not,
Erie?
yeah, we do not have any new information on that.
I think
Oh.
they're interested in the 236 Dedham Street discussion.
Oh,
'Cause they're uphill from
Okay.
it.
Okay, let's take the utility main, that'll just be an update. Janet, why don't you fill us in on that?
So you all received the letter from Eversource. They're doing some limited structure replacement. One of their transmission lines is wood. They're gonna replace it with a metal structure. This is within their easement off of Wakeland. There's no work within the wetland itself, just in the buffer. They'll be putting down timber mats, and I will go out just to monitor that project. But they are exempt. They're exempt, they just have to use best management practices and erosion control.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, thank you. And then, relative to, 236 Main Street, Dedham Street, farm use. Won't you fill us in on that?
I haven't had any direct involvement, but it appears that this is a prospective buyer of that property. And they are requesting use of the adjacent Concom land, our Dedham property, for using that for animal grazing.
Okay. So do we get a letter from them on that, or from the broker, or what's, where did this notification come from?
Lori had sent out an email she had received from individual.
Oh, okay. Lori, can you fill us in? When was that email sent out, roughly?
The 22nd.
Okay, let me, thanks, Amy. Or Lori was busy on the 22nd. No, joke.
You want,
Uh,
do you want me to pull it up?
yeah, why don't you do that? It's pretty short. So, And Sarah and Kay, did you get a copy of this letter by any chance? Or have you had any communication with these folks?
No, none at all.
Oh, okay.
No.
So basically, let's see, Amy's pulling it up.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the right one. It seems like I have multiple.
It was
emails open.
forward by Lori around 11 o'clock in the morning. It says
Not that
forward
one.
236.
Oh, here it is. Yep. No, it's my ability to share screen. I had too many
Oh,
windows
okay.
open. It was giving me too many choices. Sorry.
Got it. Okay. So, people can read this, but in essence, it's a prospective buyer looking to basically restore the farm, the barn there, and then seeing if they can utilize some of our conservation land to the right of that. I think that's interesting news, given that historically there was a talk of that potentially being subdivided into two lots with builders involved or something of that sort. I'll bring to some commissioners recall, and some new commissioners may not be aware that the people who lived in the current house, this is the house that had the windmill right at the end of Strawberry Hill Street on Dedham Street.
Yeah.
That at one point she was actually one of the major horse breeders in the state. Conservation had allowed her to put paddocks up and to utilize that the conservation land for grazing, which was mutually beneficial. Then as they shut down Suffolk Downs, she kept her horses elsewhere. And then everything grew up and we had to clear the land. And currently we cut that property twice a year there.
Once a year.
I think that that sounds interesting. It needs it's worthwhile following up on and getting a better idea of what they're proposing. Commissioners, any thoughts?
I think we should look at what the property management plan says, since we actually have one for that particular piece. And maybe this is a chance to use our property management working group to assess the opportunity or not.
Mhm.
Depending on what they find when they speak with the person and get it off of our agenda and give it to them. But I
I'm not
think this
complaining.
is,
It sounds good.
interesting, but I think that they didn't actually fence except for the recuperative paddocks that we ended up having to spend a lot of money clearing, and
Mhm.
so I'm a little bit wary of any fencing going in because of the wildlife corridor down to the river that
Mhm.
Dedham Street presents, especially with Blake being right across the street.
Mhm.
But of course, I don't want the other property to, I'd love to have another farm. So,
Mhm.
sort of a balance, but
So no, I think it's worth following up just to see what they have in mind, and taking all those things into account. And maybe there's something that, because frankly, we cleared it, we made it a field. It doesn't have the, the optimal mix of vegetation that we would like. But there, part of what we did was not only proximity and how it tied in with across the street, but also it's a very visible portion of entering town.
well,
Um,
I guess one question is, I don't know whether they actually saw it this spring, but 3/4 of it
Mm.
was underwater this spring.
Yeah, it was
My-
really underwater. I mean, like
Well,
that. Yeah.
yeah, my assumption on this is that really it's just it's the upland portion that's similar to where the paddocks were that would be useful, but we'll.
Well, no, I mean, the Loblentzes used to hay it. That was what they used it for, is they used it for, they didn't use it for grazing. They used it for exercising the horses and for grazing.
Mhm.
I mean, for haying it. Because that floodplain hay is incredibly full of nutrients. It's really wonderful hay.
Oh,
So,
interesting. Mhm.
You just have to hay it at the right time of year where
Mhm.
your tractor
Yeah,
doesn't. that.
April is unlikely, but yeah. Okay, so I
Well,
think, yeah,
yeah.
we just got this a few days ago. Sarah, did you have something to say?
No, I was just gonna say, let's see what they have to say and we'll move forward.
Yeah, and Sarah and Kate, any thoughts on this? As I said, we just received it.
It sounds very interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Sarah?
I'm having trouble getting on. Hold on. Oh, am I on? Good.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very good.
you're in a
Thank-
dark room, but other than that,
Thank
we can
you.
see you.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
no, I'm really interested. I mean, I just learned about this recently, and that's why I'm here tonight. I'm interested in what New England Design Build normally does.
Mhm.
Kind of sounds like a builder to me, but I like
Not all builders are bad.
that's right. No, I'm curious about the restoration of the barns, which
Mhm.
I was in years ago, which were in pretty terrible shape and very, very unlevel. And I'm interested in the house, clearly. Historically, I've been interested in antique houses. And I'd love to have the opportunity to meet these people. It sounds really interesting from
Mhm.
the conservation attributes that they suggest that they wish to proceed with.
Mhm. So, well, why don't we, Lori, why don't you send a response saying that we'd be more than happy to talk to them, and if they have anything they'd like to show us and anything that they'd like to direct us towards previous work. We're open to possibilities.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Then Thank you much, Sarah and Kay for hanging in there. And we'll move on with additional updates then. Let's see, discussion would be deed restrictions, Amy, I guess on 10 Claybrook Road.
So I was just my usual looking through things. Carol had asked me about large parcels for some of the land planning consultant group that they're working on the strategic plan. So I was going through and I realized that there was a deed restriction on a property that is on Claybrook as part of a subdivision, I believe. And I just wanted to make sure that I don't really know about how permanent deed restrictions work and whether this one's a permanent one or one that needs to be redone every 30 years, but we have a couple of years before it's 30 years. And so anyway, I guess mostly I'm just asking that we talk to the town council about this and what we need to do.
Okay. Laura, do we have a town council meeting coming up in the near future?
There was an email from Mona with Nina having office hours coming up soon, and I don't have it in front of me. I did forward it to you, so if anybody wants
Well, I have it. I just didn't want to, just book
Jump in
with
on your own.
Nina
I
and
appreciate that.
not have
Mhm.
everyone know about it. And I didn't
Yeah.
know whether,
that's why I had to put it on the agenda so you could talk to everyone. But
Right. So was there did you did you copy any plans that you encountered on this, Amy?
yeah, I have the deed, the deed with the deed restriction.
Mm-hmm. And was there a plan associated with it as part of the subdivision or anything, the
Yeah.
planning board?
I think so.
Was it a Form A, do you think, or was it an actual subdivision?
No, it wasn't a subdivision, so it's I don't even know if I have been where it's on Claybrook right before. I'm gonna have to look it up. I think it's in map 7. No.
Which way going down Claybrook? Is it coming from,
It's almost to Dedham Street.
oh, so you're that way of Claybrook, okay.
We're almost to
Center Street, off of Center
Street.
Street, right?
Center Street
Yeah, it's
right. Versus,
it's 6-30 36 or 38A, and it was created because they wanted to slice off a little piece of it and add it to another piece to create number 10 Claybrook.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you mentioned it looked like
and
Jonathan and Vinny had were the trustees now.
one of them, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Vinny. I don't remember. I'll have to look back at my email.
Well, I think
the trustee for the property now, but it's a Rendell property. The people that live at 21 across the street, they live on, Rendell lives at 21 right across Claybrook on the river. And this is the other way where it actually abuts the Gregg DLCT Greg land. And it's all wetlands, up there. You know, part of that whole Ponzi
Oh, I
Greg
see. Oh, okay,
wetland
got it. Yeah, yeah,
complex.
yeah.
Right, and Rendell bought all of the land, both his house and the land across the street from him, which is all wet, out of a bank foreclosure during the housing crisis, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember when he bought it, but he bought it all together as a foreclosure sale for not very much money.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff along the river is actually dry, and the stuff across Claybrook on the non-river side is apparently wet, at least according to my town map.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Right.
but
Yeah,
anyway,
I pulled it up
so
on
and
Mass.
it's
I
got
pulled it up
a,
on Mass Mapper. Uh-huh.
there's a deed restriction on 636A, and was a little difficult figuring out the plans, but I think I did figure it out.
Okay, then
It was part of an order of conditions.
with well,
That it was a Concom order of conditions that created this deed restriction. So that
Oh,
they
really?
could build, so they could build number 10.
so the 10's the house that goes in sideways. And I recall that.
It's on a teeny little lot.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's worth looking into and bringing to Vinny's attention to if it needs to. It looks like this was Rendell may have bought it in 2010, but the house might have been done prior to that.
No, he sliced off the little bit of building area, or getting the little corner sliced off as a separate lot with 0.59 acres of building area. Where you slice and stick a cat, but part of the deed restriction was part of an order of conditions, which is why I think us, as opposed to the planning board, are the ones that need to redo the deed restriction if it needs to be re-upped every 30 years.
So it would seem to make, so who wants to have the lead on this, to follow through on contacting Vinny to have him take a look at it?
Why do we need Vinny? We don't need Vinny.
Well,
yet, right? Don't we need to talk to Nina about whether we need to revise the deed, whether we need a new deed restriction, or whether Vinny's just a trustee on the property?
Right, so the whole thing is I think we can check with,
You don't need the owner.
no, did you read the, when this deed restriction was granted?
Yeah, it's less than 30 years ago.
But it's close, it's more than 25?
No, I don't know. I don't remember.
So, did you want Nina to take a look at it and let us know whether?
I want to know whether or not it's a perpetual one or not.
Okay, why don't we, can you
Because
write
there
up
are perpetual ones, right? Because we got a perpetual one on lot 3.
So, and the deed restriction specifically calls out Conservation Commission is holding that conservation restriction?
No, but I do know that it was part of an order of conditions that required it. It was 2006 it was done. So it hasn't even been 20 years.
Right, so it's something we can have Nina look into, but it's not any danger in our currently. Okay. Okay, Lori, can you just and can you add that on to Nina's why don't we set up an appointment with Nina and get together questions for her? And this would be one of them. And Amy, can you send to Lori the map and parcel and any other information you have on that?
Yeah, I think I thought I sent the deed restriction, but when I sent the original one, but I will pull together a package of all this
Okay.
stuff.
Okay,
So
thanks.
Okay, who's talking to Nina?
So the question is, do we have any other questions for Nina coming up?
Oh.
She's gonna be here. Commissioners, are there things that we want clarified from town council for anything in particular? Do you have a date for that?
I don't
Lori?
know off the top of my head, but I will re-forward the email to everyone so they can think about it and, you know.
Okay, I just didn't know if it's within the next 2 weeks or if it's gonna be outside of that window. Or actually, for this, it can be the next time she comes around.
This could even probably be through email.
Yep, so, well, then you and I, Lori, can discuss whether or not we have any other questions for town council for this particular office hour session that she has.
Okay,
Okay, so,
and I can send everyone the dates in case they want to
great,
ask
thank you.
questions.
Okay, the land management work group update?
Yeah, so let's see. We met recently. Amy joined us. Thank you, Amy. On talking about, finishing off the bog bridge, what we want to do this year, land management plans. So after discussing as a group, we think the best next step is to do a land management plan for the Springdale field rather than a strategic plan for the entire town. Mainly to hit the ground running, mainly because the rail trail is coming up, and it'll give us a way to kind of get a handle on that quickly. So unless folks feel really strongly otherwise, we were going to pursue figuring that out, doing an RFP for that. So that's our first thought.
When you say RFP, is that something such as hiring Audubon to look at that specific thing again?
Yeah,
and then, yep, and
reviewing
that's
what we have.
actually, that's contiguous with part of the rail trail, so there may be some level of connection that can be incorporated there. So
Yeah, they got the big grant to figure out the rail trail, just the rail trail, but we might be able to, we want to talk to them and see if there may be funding available for finding bounds along the rail trail or something. We don't know that it would fit in, but it's sort of, all in the same, we're doing it at the same time, so we're hoping we can be efficient.
That sounds great. And this sounds
Mhm.
awesome.
No, I think
Great.
that's the obvious next place to direct our attention. So,
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. And then a couple other things. So then on the trails side, Rick and Greg especially, we're all planning our next meeting to come up with our agenda for this year so we can come back and say these are our additional priorities. For trails, that's probably finding specific areas or figuring out how we're going to find specific areas to clear, do shorter bridges, stuff like that. So we want to come up with a list of things. And then last of all, in very exciting news, the town meeting land transfer deed was recorded. So that is done. And it is in. Yeah.
And it did
I'll
not
send it
include,
along.
it did not include the town wells.
It did not include the town wells. It did not
Or
include Bonzi.
pickleball courts or, yeah,
Nope.
no.
Great,
So-
nice work, everyone involved there. Let's see, in signage for trails, is there, where do we stand on that? Or has it been?
We want, one of our first things, we want to figure out which trails we want to mark in what way. Sorry about the speaking. So we have our different colors and we're tentatively planning to put them in Wildwoods, but we're not quite sure, other than doing the blue trail blue, we're not quite sure how we're going to divvy it up.
Okay, so it's in process.
In progress.
Great.
Oh, and last of all, so with the town meeting property done for last year, I think everyone should consider if we want to do something similar this year. And I can go find the selectmen and be like, would you like to look at a proposal? So I know there's land around town that open space is considered separately. That's not a thing to decide on today, but something we should think about.
Okay, and I imagine, Amy, do you have anything that pops the top of mind or? No, good. So we own everything.
Well,
Great,
I mean,
Yeah,
they're
thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, we should just think about what we want to do about the Ponzi and Noel land. Those are
Mhm,
the
mhm.
last two on my
Mhm.
list.
Mm-hmm. So,
Bird
And
property, I
and
think I heard.
And I will say, I mean, I haven't ridden Wildwoods in over a year, but I know that there is controversy amongst, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but like mountain bikers versus horse people in Wildwoods.
mhm.
So we need to figure
Yes.
out,
And have there been more mountain bikers showing up there, or is it the same, or what is it?
I don't know. All I know is that this is always, what comes first, the horse or the cart before the horse. But horse people think that mountain bikers are ruining the trails,
Mhm,
and mountain bikers feel like the horse people are, so I don't know.
mhm. Well, see,
And
it
I
seems
mean,
part of it is based on
Yeah.
use. I think originally Wildwoods didn't allow mountain bikers. Is that correct?
I'm not
Does
sure we
anybody know?
still, we do
I think
technically.
that is true, John. I think it was only for equestrian use, and then again, I don't know the deed. I mean, I don't
Mhm.
know, but it has become, I know from my use, because I have my horse next to Wildwoods, it was less and less horse people and more bike people.
Mm.
And then now that there are more horse people who are using it, they're complaining about the bike people. I mean,
Well, I think part of it is,
Technically, we weren't supposed to have bikes in
Right.
Wildwoods
and I think
because of the Stones wanting their own privacy and experiencing a lot of bikes coming through their
Mhm.
land. But
Well, I
Mr.
think
Stone isn't with us anymore.
yeah, as time moves on, and the other thing that happened was that all trails and apps like that basically published all these trails. So one of the original concerns was that as well. Uh, there, for example, there are a number of there's an active Dover cadre of mountain bikers that seem to do things, and then the question
yes,
is whether or not there are
and we
additional
all know
people.
who they are.
Yeah, and it's all, but many of them seem to know how they're supposed to behave, but I'm just wondering, one of the thoughts is to, whether or not we get a meeting together for, between, Concom and mountain bikers and a few horse people so that, we get a sense of where people are coming from, but also to clarify horses come first, and just lay down that, there are clear rules of what bikers are supposed to do when they encounter horses, and make sure that people are aware of that if we're going to allow them to do things, and whether we have an ability to police things versus allowing relatively limited use with people who know how to behave. I don't know, so I think that's something for us to.
John, I would love that. And I would take this on as like spearheading this on and like inviting people to come to, like, let's just say the stables, because it's a neutral place, and
Mhm.
just have everyone meet. And
I don't know if stables are neutral, but yeah, go ahead.
well, I mean, again, it's not, my house is not neutral, but
Oh,
like,
no, I understand, but yeah,
Yeah.
and stables are nice for mountain bikers to,
but I mean, where would you want us to meet? Like in,
no, I
mean,
think that gives them adequate land. I think that's that for everyone to meet. So I think that's not a bad idea. So you continue in terms of how you were willing to
no, I was
spearhead.
just gonna say, I mean, you know, as everyone knows, I wear multiple hats, and I'd wear the hat on that meeting
Mhm.
saying, here I
Okay.
am. I'm a leader of this hunt club.
Mhm.
And we appreciate your love of mountain biking, but you also have to appreciate what we do, and we've done this longer than you have done it. I mean, we can do it in a very easy, nice way.
Mhm.
But also say these trails were, you know, these trails were way before you guys mountain bikers. I mean, Anyway, we can
So-
figure out the verbiage and figure out what we want to say, but to your point, John, I love the fact that we can, as from a horse perspective, we can say we like what you're doing, but you also have to you have to appreciate what we've been doing, and this is what, you're riding the trails because of us.
Yeah,
So to speak.
well, I think, well, it's a lot of communication. Part of it is mountain bikers don't get skittish when they're approached. Horses do, so that, they take the precedence. But let me reach out to, I'm not an active, mountain biker anymore, but let me reach out to some of the folks I know who are parts of these groups and bring this up. And one of the things may be a matter of just finding out what people's schedules are, where where if there's overlap is. I think the concept of reaching out to mountain bikers saying, look, this is a multi-use trail, come meet some horse folks and and see things from their perspective. I think we could get a number of people interested in that. So let's I don't know how many of them are around for the summer, but Anna, you've been out there for relatively frequently. Have you seen trails that have been incised, if you will, or in those anything that shows rampant mountain bike damage at all?
I mean, water damage has been more on my mind. I haven't seen much either way, but I just hike. I don't know where the good mountain biking / horseback riding spots are.
So I think, that's one thing we take a look at. I know that when Janet and I did a site walk off of Draper Road into the trustees' property, that was more motorcycle damage where they had really carved out some ruts into
Sure.
things. Mountain bikers, most of them are relatively mature, at least age-wise. But the idea of and I don't know how it is with horse people, but in the spring, when trails are somewhat muddy, do horse people tend to stay off the trails? Or
No,
is it
we stay on them because we try to avoid the muddy paths, but we try to, our trails are our trails. But
No, it's just one of the things with mountain bikers is that like with Nuannet and so forth, they put signs up. They basically ask mountain bikers to refrain from using them in April and early May because they can more easily rut things, whereas horses tend to sort of chew things up, but they don't create ruts, when they're going through mud. Whereas mountain bikers will pick a line, and usually it's a line that goes outside the mud and opens up, makes the trail wider and wider over time.
Yeah, there's definitely some spots like that.
Okay, so I think we'll get an idea of inventory components there, but I'll reach out to some of the mountain bikers and get a sense for that that sort of discussion. And
but but John, I would be more than happy to have a meeting. It doesn't have to be at the Norfolk Hunt Club stables, but I think it would be kind of fun to have a meeting for all of us to get together and just, to my point that I've said 1,000 times is we all can get along.
well, I think that we get buy-in on all parties because maybe even potential mixed maintenance crews or something of that
Yeah.
sort. So
Right. Exactly. Like the yep.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Anna. Sorry.
One thing is when we purchased our trail supplies, we tried to get some that were hikers and some that were equestrians. So at a meeting like this, we could figure out ways to like mountain bikers go with the hikers or something, and then do little splits in the trails at critical spots.
Well, I think,
to avoid the worst of this.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. First is determine is to sort of get an idea of what the worst actually is, or where the conflicts might arise, things of that nature, and then we can bring that up to them. Or it could be part of that initial meeting, which is when do you run into this, and what are the concerns on both parties, and then work it from there. And you've been eyeing water issues. We'll figure out if we have rutting issues from tires and things of that sort. So I think this, but the concept.
And what's interesting is, from my perspective as a horse person, we're not so concerned about the water. We're more concerned about stubs Like small, like when you guys like
Oh,
cut something short, that's not good for us because the
Oh, you're saying,
horses,
you're saying if somebody creates a trail or starts to work on a trail and they leave small stumps.
small, that's really dangerous for a horse. Versus
Oh,
what you guys, you guys aren't thinking that way, like we're thinking, so
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
another perspective that we need to bring a third party in for that.
Well, I think part,
Stub clearing is what, I know what you guys are thinking, but it's not. And
well,
it,
I
from
was,
your
I wasn't
perspective,
even, I wasn't even aware that bikers had been out creating trails or doing anything of that nature with things, because they certainly shouldn't be doing that without permission. So I think, we should find out where, what's going on there, because those things shouldn't exist. And in actual mountain bike trail makers, which there is the New England Mountain Bike Association has them, they don't leave stubs. They, if anything, they'll fill things over if they think there's something, because they don't want to encounter those either.
Okay.
They're that may be a completely different group, or like the Phantom Clearer who was out there
right,
earlier
that's,
this
but
year.
there is a phantom player, that's why I'm bringing it up, like the guy that just.
But that is most likely not a mountain biker. So it's but by getting both horse and mountain bike folks together, we have extra sets of eyes to see who that, Phantom Clearer is, or things of that nature. So I think that's given that, also tying in with the rail trail as it comes up and so forth. And that was one of the concerns, which is people coming off the rail trail onto properties, both on Farm Street side or also coming off onto Wild Woods. So I think we want to sort of hash things out and get a sense of who's using what, because frankly, we don't. Even as a mountain biker, I don't want to see a bunch of bikes in Wildwoods. I don't mind somebody, going through here and there, but I really don't want to see packs of people coming in at 4 PM. But the nice thing about all trails, there are many, many other trails all around Massachusetts that are now available. The other thing is that the hardcore mountain bikers don't really use the rail trails. They might use it for access, but they're not really using them for, they're going to go out behind the high school, for example,
Hmm.
before they do things of that sort. But I think it's a great germination to try to get groups together. So why don't we can work on that and move, going forward. So
Let
thank
me
you.
know how we can help.
Yeah. So I'll
Yeah,
bring
yeah, we'll circle back because I would
Yeah,
love to like have
I'll
a,
bring in a few mountain bikers I know, and let's see. I think we've covered that, and so then Janet, we're looking for updates on active permits, etc. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, we'll try to get through these quickly. The first item is an update and report on 15 Grand Hill Drive. As you recall, we issued an enforcement order for removal of trees that appeared to be in the buffer zone. The trees were cut and the sections of the trees were dumped very close to the wetland, if not in the wetland. We issued an enforcement order to at least have the area delineated. We got a request from the property owner. She got some quotes, very expensive, over $4,000 for a straightforward delineation, which I thought was very high. John, Anna, and myself did a site visit with the homeowner. Since the enforcement order was issued, the area really has grown in. There was an access road, and that is being renaturalized and filled in. And I think it was the sense of the three of us that having the cut down trees removed near the wetland could in fact cause more alteration and disturbance. And that just simply leaving them where they were was probably the best resolution at this point. And John and I don't want to speak for you, but does that sound about right?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly more logs than I was expecting, even from the photo. It was a pretty big area. And yet ferns were coming up and it was, very close to the lawn next door. It seemed like if they were going to haul all that out, it was going to require cutting up the woods more than just letting the logs decay, which will take a long time, but if they're good with that seems fine.
Yeah, I think it was it was beyond crane distance as well. And not only that, is frankly the homeowner seems to have a history of being taken advantage of, most likely due to the language issues. And this leaving these things seemed to be the most practical and fairly benign in terms of wetland impact way to handle this. So I'm in favor of that, and I'd be fine with just wrapping that up with a letter relative to the enforcement agent. The enforcement letter stating that upon review, we've agreed to handle it that way. And also add in there, although she seems to understand this very clearly, that any trees to be cut, any future trees to be cut, she must get permission, which she already had at one point. Just wasn't clarified as to where they're supposed to end up. So,
I
I'm
would
fine
be,
with that. I mean, I don't think we need an emotion because it's just a discussion, right?
yeah,
Or-
we're basically close out the enforcement order.
Right.
Administratively, I think. Janet, do you see any need for a vote on this?
because we voted to issue the enforcement order, I think the proper procedure is a vote to rescind the enforcement order with the, that removal of the trees would cause more disturbance. And just stating that no additional work or tree removals in the buffer zone should be conducted without the commission's review or approval. So
Would anybody like to so move that?
I would like to make, yes.
Just say
So
so
moved.
Okay, do I hear a
Second.
second? Thank you. All in favor? Amy,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, great. Thanks, Janet. Okay, next.
And so I think probably to close that out, a formal letter from Lori in the office would be appropriate to the owner.
Yep.
Okay, very good. The next item is a commission site visit at Claybrook Road to look at the condition of the bank stabilization project. That has been scheduled for this coming Monday. That's July 29th at 11 a.m.
And is that at, across the street from the bridge part? Is that like, I don't know what the number is. What's the number?
It's basically where lot 3 was.
Okay,
Um,
lot 3.
and-
I know, but I'm, okay. All right, I know. Okay.
And just, so the abutter is concerned about the density of the plantings, wildlife access from the pond, and also bank stabilization. And really adamant with those concerns. So we'll be meeting DPW Director Kevin McCabe and Scott Jordan, the wetland scientist, on that project.
Okay.
Okay. And I just wanted to double check because I knew that had been rescheduled. So is that at 11 o'clock?
That's right.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Wait, what
Okay,
date?
next. That's Monday, the 29th.
Monday, next Monday.
Okay.
I'll send out a reminder.
Great, thanks.
The next
Okay.
Red Robin, we're in the certificate of compliance. I thought.
I'm sorry, you dropped out a little bit there. Can you start over again?
We're anticipating a certificate of compliance request on Red Robin. I thought we might have that in by now, but we haven't. And also we would, in the order of conditions, we indicated that the stormwater work, the review of that as built would be done by a third party. We had used Tetra Tech. And so they would be reviewing that.
So let me just check in on Lori. Is the Tetra Tech balance still outstanding there?
It's still outstanding, but I had a discussion with Paul. I sent him all my paperwork, Paul McGovern, and he came over the next day with a check for me. So it will be taken care of. But it's
Okay,
like Tetra Tech should submit some kind of an estimate before,
yeah.
um,
So why don't we get their letter, their COC letter, which we can then forward over to Tetra Tech and get that estimate.
and then involve Paul so he knows more charges are coming.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
We already talked about the Eversource work over off Wakeland. The next item is a recommendation to develop a certificate of compliance requirement and procedure form. I sent out 2 examples. They're both 1-pagers. One was from Ipswich, one was from Situate, just to make very clear what we expect and in what form, so we can avoid lengthy reviews of these things. So I suppose that I will put something together that's probably a combination of these 2, kind of a checklist that would go out to applicants when, and we could have that online so they know exactly what they need to submit.
Yeah, and I'd like to have a reference, as we discussed earlier, of a narrative that compares the proposed plan versus the current plan, so that it's one thing to have a checklist, but we also want that narrative to address those things ahead of time. I appreciate that. Thank you. And so if when you sent that out fairly recently, didn't you, Janet?
I sent that out on the 22nd.
Okay, so if folks have a chance to review them, one's from Situate, one is from Ipswich. And it just and we're trying to avoid the issues that we had this evening, which are have everything explained to us so that we know that due diligence was done, so that we're more than happy to issue certificates of compliance when we have all the right information. Okay.
And then just the last thing is, tonight was a light permit review meeting, but our recent bump in issuance of order of conditions has resulted in a lot of projects coming online. So quite a bit of my time, I'm going to start outlining just the projects that are starting to begin, and then I'm starting just so the commission knows about that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I've seen all the emails that you've been forwarding. So and it's clear how things are ramping up there. Although relatively well-defined projects, so fingers crossed. Great. Then next scheduled meeting is the 14th. So we get so it's a three week break there. Go wild. Does anyone else outside of Artie have anything else they want to bring up? Okay, Artie, are you online with us because you love us, or, well, we know that, but did you have something else that you wanted to clarify, or?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify one quick item, if the commission indulges me.
Yep.
One of the things that Janet has asked us consistently on when we do this, the request for certificate of compliance, is to list what items are in deviation, but at the same time give an opinion that is not detrimental to the wetlands. So as far as delineating what is different, that's not a problem. However, we don't have the in-house, the resources to have a wetlands person to say that, yes, we gave that as that opinion, because the letter is being signed as a surveyor, or the letter is being signed by the engineer. Now you're asking an engineer to give an opinion on wetlands. And I don't think that is fair, unless is the intent of the commission that when we file for a certificate of compliance, we write a letter showing the deviations, and then we'll have a wetland scientist write a letter for going on top of each item, that saying item number 1, in their opinion, is not detrimental to the wetlands, because we don't feel that we have the proper qualifications to make a statement, or, I mean, the certificate of compliance requires that the surveyor or the engineer has to make a statement what is different.
Mhm.
What the commission is asking us now is to render an opinion on wetlands that we are not qualified on.
So I,
Would you
I
like
think-
us to have a wetlands person write a letter to go along with our certificate? That way you have an opinion from a wetland scientist?
I think, and I understand your circumstance there, Artie, where you may not, have somebody on staff to do something like that. So that's different than, say, a company like GLM that has wetland scientists, on staff.
Yeah.
However, I think on a common sense basis, if you have something that encroached something, but you point out that it's flat or it actually goes uphill, or that there's, for many of these things, you could point out why you believe it's not, because it's really not that critical. If you have a concern about something being critical, then they go out and get a wetlands person for it. But I think for many benign things, you could just, as part of your explanation, you can say, we don't think that it reaches that level of criticality. Do
Well,
you
or if
follow
he
that
has
without?
a question about it, then highlight that there's a question and then
Yeah.
we can
And-
I mean,
discuss,
the
and
way-
that's what we'll focus our discussions on.
Well,
Mhm.
again, the logic is the DEP requires only a statement for deviations. Now we're
Mhm.
going above board and saying, give us a statement on the impact on the wetlands.
But
And
we've even your office has done that, in the past, which says, we've seen, 3 deviations, they're blank, blank, blank. We don't feel that that has a negative impact on the wetlands, because very
Yeah.
often they might be, quite a distance away, or
I
something.
understand. So as a town representative, if you get sued, nothing happens to you. But if it is that two property owners later on have another person saying, well, hold on a second, where do you have this knowledge to say that it's not impacting the
Then
wetlands?
if you
Then I got
want to,
nothing to hold myself.
if
So
you want to, if you want to practice a defensive, tenor like that, which is appropriate, given the way your firm is set up, that's fine, and then that's up to the homeowner to have
Yeah.
to.
This is just a clarification for me. So it is the expectation from the commission that you want an opinion on the impact on the wetlands, not just having a statement saying what is different. That's
Well,
the
so-
only thing I was doing.
So Janet, if it's
We've
if it's a
got a
very
discussion.
benign difference, what's your take on something like that?
Still think, and the other towns that I've looked at, they do ask for information. And again, it's opinion. So if you're not, but you're an engineer, a land surveyor, you know how hydrology works, So, but if you don't feel comfortable rendering that opinion, then I guess the fallback would be to bring on a wetland scientist or consultant.
We'll do that. Okay. I just don't want to take the responsibility. That's all. Okay, understood. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Good night. Okay, thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay, see ya. But interesting, I want to bring up one thing. Jen and I encountered this, Artie actually was involved, but it was, we had an issue where, we had a lot on Powissa Street, where typically the building department requires a letter from an engineer that says that there are none of the proposed work is within 100 feet of a wetland or 200 feet of a river. And we generally haven't had a problem with that, because engineers or surveyors certainly can recognize, that. And in this particular case, they were concerned, or they just did that, and Janet felt that it should have a wetland scientist denoting that, and that has not been our policy. It's basically like proving a negative. If you have a piece of dry land, then a surveyor says there's no wetlands, within 100 feet, and their reputation is staked on it, but they stamped the letter, and that's all we've had to do.
I don't think that's true, because in order to get my barn built, Joyce had to write a letter.
Well, no, generally we do, but Joyce happens to be one of those circumstances where she is a wetlands expert, but for surveys in general, when I've submitted.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Let me follow through, let you know
Okay.
how it happens when you're applying for a permit. I applied for a permit on a lot in Dover. There's no wetlands involved there. I have the surveyor state there's no there's there, and generally I've had surveyors, and I write up a letter and we say that. And, and part of this is I select land that I don't have any wetlands on, or I try to,
yeah, I don't have any.
but the fact of the matter is, I don't need to hire and spend $500 for a wetland scientist to come out to confirm that there's no
Right,
wetlands
to
on
prove- to prove that,
what
right.
is obviously a dry
Right.
piece of land. And in Joyce's
I
case,
did.
she does right, but she does double duty because did you have her as your surveyor or your engineer?
No,
So who said that you needed to get a wetland scientist to do that?
the building department required it in their checklist
They just
in
require a
order
survey.
to issue the building permit to
did you have
Bobby Keene.
Yeah, so that Walter and my dealing with Walter, also with all the previous other building inspectors, they
This was
do not.
Walter.
Yeah, no. But
2006.
this came up because it was Walter who called me. He does not, if it's a dry piece of land, he does not require, he just requires a surveyor to sign
Oh,
off on it. He
well,
doesn't require a wetland
Maybe because I didn't have a
scientist.
surveyor. I don't know.
Well, if you use Joyce, she does both. It's, some
Well,
places.
I don't
only
know.
do-
All right,
I don't-
let's
it
get
doesn't
on with the
matter.
story.
But-
Okay,
Okay.
John.
So my point being, it is, in this particular instance, I was getting phone calls from both Walter, Artie, so forth. Jen and I discussed this. Our regulations in our history has always been that a surveyor signing that letter and putting that on the plan is adequate. If wetlands are found later, then that's on the surveyor. But in the vast majority of the issues, that doesn't come up. There's a dry piece of land. They say that, it's, there's nothing within 100 feet. Requiring a wetland scientist to prove a negative is an extra cost that's not necessary. And so I'm bringing this up because I would like to confirm that, our policy has been, if it's that a surveyor's confirmation of that is adequate when there are no wetlands on the property.
So that's what Artie was debating about. That was what he was going off about.
Well, Walter Walter has 30 days to respond and give somebody a permit. If he doesn't do that within 30 days, he has to grant that permit as a matter of course. Okay. So that if you require somebody to do a wetlands, get a wetland scientist, or if they're historically, his whole thing has been, he has accepted a surveyor attestation on the plan, then for him to go back and say, no, you need to get a wetland scientist to do that, that eats up time. And next thing you know, he has maybe 2 weeks in order to review plans and things of that nature.
Okay,
And so he was concerned.
that makes sense. Okay.
He was concerned because he has a tight time frame window, and we historically do not require a wetland scientist to say nothing exists. We require them if something does exist to delineate it, but if nothing exists, it's up to the surveyor to contact a wetland scientist if they find something on there. But if they don't, surveyors can sign off saying we didn't encounter a wetland. It's also something that I can't recall us having a surveyor attest to something and then finding out later on that there was an actual wetlands there. So it's kind of I thought it added unnecessary complexity. So I talked to Walter and I agreed with Walter. I talked to Janet, outlined the history of things. And I think unless we encounter a rampant system of fraud, I see no reason for us to make things more complicated and fire wetland scientists. In Artie's case, he was confused and he went out and it cost his client $500 more to have Deb Anderson write a letter, and that wasn't. I don't like adding levels of bureaucracy when we don't need them. So
And we don't need to be the reason for it. I mean,
Mm.
almost
Yeah,
to Lori's point earlier, like, or Janet's, like, they just need to read there's a checklist. There's a method to our madness, like, so just follow it. And if
well,
you
I think
don't do it,
part of what I wanted to bring up is our checklist never required a wetland scientist to attest to that when a wetland didn't exist, and I
Right.
see no reason to change that. You
Right.
know, so unless anybody has a particular concern with that, I want to confirm that that's what the way we'll handle this. So let's see. Are there any other things, issues or items that anyone would like to bring up for the evening? Thank you very much, and Anna, thank you for stepping in and reminding me of time there, because
I was
sure.
about to do it. I was like 2 seconds before Anna did it. I was like, oh my God, she did it before me.
And frankly, it was exactly what Janet has pointed out is one of the time wasters, both of her time and our time, is when people do not prepare properly.
Yeah.
And yet he showed us on the plan. He also had the previous owner write the letter, could have done all that stuff beforehand. So I think, we'll tighten up, but that's, we have others who do a better job of that. But we'll just enforce that even more so. And Janet,
And
Janet,
I thought it was great. I literally was about to say, and I was like, oh my God, John's gonna bite my head off. And then Anna went in and I was like, oh my God, this is great. Like,
yeah, if you had done it, I would have bitten your head off. But Anna, no.
right. Anna, I was like, oh my God, she's the
So
new kid on the block. She's the young one.
No, I am. I hope. I'm open to any of that sort of feedback, because it was. But it also tied in so perfectly with exactly the issues that Janet has been discussing. So,
It seemed like Janet was gonna have to say another version of your thing isn't complete, and we would just be
Right,
doing
like,
it for another
oh my
hour.
God, like, why
Yeah.
are you jerks not listening or reading like, it's so easy.
Yeah, so I think we outlined very clearly to Artie what we were expecting and why it really wasn't that difficult.
Yeah.
You just have to think ahead of time. But Janet's at the same time, Janet could see this coming, and she sent out how these other towns do it. So let's review those so that we can have them on our next meeting agenda. Okay,
Thank you.
great. Any anything else?
No, all
Okay.
good.
Well, hearing no objections, tonight's meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank